Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So you may have seen a couple of days ago we posted a video covering 5 of the best hip stretches that instantly improve your hip flexibility, hip range of motion, your ability to move your hip in general. And what you may notice from watching that video is that we tended to rely on a power band. So these stretchy bands have revolutionized the way that we can stretch, particularly a joint like the hips, which can become stiff. Because it targets something that we often don't target very well when stretching, which is the joint capsule. So the stiffness in the joint itself, we can use a band or a power band, hook it around the joint, put that hip into different positions, and see instant improvements in your range of motion that you just can't get with traditional stretching. So please check that out. We'll leave a link up here somewhere. But one of the things that also, is characterized by those exercises is that they were all on the floor. So we recognize that getting down onto the floor isn't as easy for everyone. So we want to make sure that there's also a series of exercises that you can do either on your bed or using a chair or a table that can give you just as good or just as make it just as beneficial for your hip flexibility. Because one of the things that we know clinically about hip function is that not only does hip range of motion have a real impact in a lot of the hip pains and hip conditions like arthritises and bursitis and impingements and all these sort of hip specific issues, but what a lot of us don't realize is that the joints above and below the hip can be heavily affected if that hip joint is stiff and rusty. So if you miss a lot of that indigenous range of motion at your hips, then that creates this extra load through your lower back and through your knees and the rest of your leg as well. But those two joints, the low sections of the back and the knee joint, can become quite dysfunctional just because they're trying to work around a restriction at your hips. So even if your hips aren't painful, if they're stiff or tight, you can seriously improve your function, particularly of your back and your knees and your hips, of course, just by doing a couple of basic hip stretches, which we'll go through today. So I've found the world's smallest chair for the purposes of this video, but we'll cover another 5 today, and hopefully if you can do them, you'll see some genuine change. So please let us know in the comments below, let us know how you go with them. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps these videos come across more people so they can learn as well. And also like the video as well. It really helps support the channel. It just helps it grow. So as I said briefly, we want to make sure that these exercises make a genuine change in your flexibility. And the best way to see that in real time is to do a test beforehand, do your stretch, then do another test at the end. Compare those 2 tests to see what's changed. And for me personally, the test I like the best is just your basic squat. So making sure that things are similar. We want to have your feet straight. We want those knees sort of screwed out. We want to keep your back nice and straight. And then when you squat down, just get a sense of how deep you feel you can go before your heels maybe want to come up, before your feet want to turn out, more importantly, before your knee wants to cave in, or you feel your back start to round as you reach the bottom. And as we said before, if your back starts to round, if your knee tends to want to cave in, that's a sign that your body's trying to work around a restriction in your hips. So if you take a note of how those 2 things feel, even if they don't hurt, take note of how deep you go and the quality of how it feels to do that. Then we'll do each of these exercises and I'll get you to come back and test that out again in real time so that you don't have to guess, you don't have to take my word for it. You'll hopefully see that there's a change straight away. Gives you confidence that you're going to be able to do something and consistently get better with your mobility, not just keep stretching, getting stiff, keep stretching, getting stiff, which is a cycle that a lot of us are on at the moment. So the first exercise, again, we covered this in the last video, but it's still very, very important, and that's the couch stretch. So in the previous video, we did it on the floor with your foot up against the wall, but as the name implies here, we can do it on a chair or a couch. So the idea is, again, we want that knee into the back corner of your chair, your shin pretty vertical there, and with the other foot to come up, and we just want to come up with your back straight. We're going to extend through your hip as high as you feel comfortable. And again, we're looking for some restriction through the front of the hip here. You may feel it down the thigh as well. This is a very, very, very brutal stretch for some, so you may find you can only come maybe half the way up. That's completely fine. If you squeeze your bum, push your hip into the ground. The characteristic that I'll ask you to carry through each of these stretches is the first thing is we want to make sure that your back stays straight at all times. So don't sort of cheat yourself and say, look, I can only come up here through my hips, but by extending my back, or I've reached vertical, when you're not actually maneuvering this any further, you're just hinging through your back to get there. So we want a true sense of how far up you can come before that back starts to bend. And that's obviously your good position. The second part of each stretch we want you to do is we want you to become active. We want to use that PNF, or that proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation technique, that contract relax technique, to get your brain involved, to get the muscles around your hip to give quickly. So how that looks is once you've found your tight spot, you take a deep breath in and then squeeze everything. So squeeze your bum, squeeze your hips, push your foot back into the wall or the back of the chair, hold that for 5 to 10 seconds and then relax. And then you should find that immediately you can go a little bit further than you could before. Deep breath in, squeeze everything, hold for 5, and then relax. And then again, coming out of that stretch, what you should hopefully find here is when you squat again, having done this side, it should just feel a little bit easier to get down than it did before. We're looking potentially maybe how it feels on your knee, but also just the front of that thigh should just feel like there's a little bit more room to move. So that's stretch number 1. Stretch number 2 is more of a hip flexion stretch. So again, using a regular sized chair or table, I want to get you to put your foot up onto that. Again, keeping your back nice and straight. I'm going to get you to let your knee drop out to the side there. So how that looks front on. We're essentially going to let your knee drop out because we're going to get you to lean through that. So we want your leg out the way. So again, how that looks is that knee comes out to the side, back stays nice and straight. And we get you to lean forward, but as I get you to do that, we need you to pull your bottom back as you lean forwards. And what we're looking for here is we're looking for some tightness or a pulling feeling sort of underneath the fold of your bum, sort of where your glute finishes, your hamstring begins, that high hamstring area. We're trying to find a tight spot, and again, characteristics, keeping that back nice and straight. Number 2 is contracting. So take a deep breath in, squeeze everything, squeeze your bum, squeeze your thigh, push your foot back into the chair or the table, hold for 5, and then relax. And then what you'll hopefully feel is you can drop down a little bit further than you could before. Again, we're not interested in your back bending because a lot of people can get a lot further by bending your back, but it's not a true indication of how far you can go. So again, deep breath in, squeeze, and then relax. And again, you should feel like it goes a little bit further than before. And then to retest that, again, doing this leg, hopefully you'll see a difference here. This one's generally quite obvious. When you squat down again, you should feel like you get down deeper on that side. Compared to this side, I don't go down as deep yet, but this left side for me just feels like there's a lot more room to move in that position. So exercise number 3. So again, with your bench or chair, we want to do a rotation, a hip rotation stretch. So I'm going to get you to rotate your leg across, maybe your shins relatively sort of comfortable on the plane of the chair or the table or the bed. Again, same thing as before, we want you to stick your bottom out as you lean forwards. And we're looking for some tightness in that traditional glute area where your back pocket might be. That piriformis, a lot of other glutes get tight. This is a great way to stretch it. So again, big breath in, squeeze, tense those bottom muscles, push your shin back into the chair, hold that for a few seconds, and then relax. And you feel you can go a little bit deeper into that position. Deep breath in, hold, squeeze, and relax. And again, we want to keep repeating that. So coming back to this squat again, because we just practiced a rotation stretch, what you should feel is when we squat down, you should feel like those knees, or the knee that you stretch, can rotate out further than before. So again, how that looks for me is you're looking to get into a position where we can get deep and then get that knee out wider. So for me, that right one gets stuck here. The left one feels like it can go out a little bit further than it could before. Again, gives us a little bit more range of motion to play with. Now, stretch number 4, again, from the previous video, we worked on some groin stretching. We're going to do the same thing again here. Excuse me. So you want to place your foot, again, up on the chair, up on the bench, facing forwards, but this time we're going to rotate sort of almost to 90 degrees, or as far as you feel comfortable. We're going to repeat the same process that we had before. Where your back stays nice and straight. We poke the bottom out as you lean forwards. And we're looking to feel a really tight, specific stretch up in that groin area. So again, if this is painful for you, don't go as deep or as far into the stretch. But what we want to do here is, again, take a deep breath in, squeeze everything, squeeze your glutes, push your shin back into to the chair, get these muscles to work, hold for 5 seconds, then relax. And then again, making sure that your back stays nice and straight as you lean forwards. And then relax again. And hopefully what you'll see here, depending on this side, your ability to get your knee out but also get down deeper will hopefully improve. So for me, I feel like I'm nice and upright here. That knee now feels like it wants to go a little bit further out. I also feel like I've sort of opened up this sort of inner corner of the hip a little bit more, give myself a little bit more range of motion to move with. So, excuse me, so those 4 exercises take care of sort of the front part of the rotation, the flexion and the abduction aspects of the hip joint. The 5th exercise that we're going to go through involves you lying down, so you can do this on the bed, you can do this on another surface if you want to, the couch perhaps, but what we're looking for here, hopefully you can see this with me. So what we want to do here is we want to take your leg out to the side, and what we're going to do here is we're going to let the knee drop into the middle. So if you can see this, hopefully you can see this, so we take the leg out and then we drop the knee into the middle. So essentially the thigh bone's still relatively out straight like it would be if your foot was directly out in front, but we're creating that internal rotation of the hip. And what this does, as you do this, you should feel hopefully that pretty much at the top of your hip in this position. So when it's neutral, it's sort of the outside corner, that TFL, sort of those lateral hip muscles. We want to get that knee to drop in. So same thing again. Take a deep breath in, squeeze, so tense your bum, squeeze your thigh muscle, push your foot into the ground. Almost feel like you're about to lift your hips off the ground like a bridge, but just that pre-lift before you do it. Tense those muscles up. You should feel all the muscles at the top, sort of outside corner of your hip tense, and then relax, and then you should feel like that knee drops a little bit deeper than before. Now, if you have some real hip stiffness here, you may find that your knee will only go down a little bit. Doesn't matter. Eventually what you should feel is that knee starts to drop without you wanting to sort of lift your bottom off the ground or twist off that position. But again, we want to be in that position. We take a deep breath in, tense everything, hold it for 5 seconds, and then relax. And again, it should feel like it drops and a lot of this tissue sort of opens up a lot more. And then again, just to finish that off, how this looks as we squat down again. Again, for me, it just feels so much nicer to be in this position. I've got a lot more movement options with my hip. I can change my foot position and it just feels more comfortable. I don't feel like I'm ready to fall backwards or lift my heels up. So with those 5 hip stretches, we're hopefully hitting, I guess, the entire circumference of the hip, trying to capture a lot of the hip stiffness, the hip tightness that occurs, generally from sitting, to be honest. The positions that we sit in a lot, over time, the body gets used to them, but it also gets stiff in those shapes. And if we're not sort of exploring those deeper ranges consistently just through day-to-day movement, then they become stiff and tight. So that adage of, that old saying of using it, not using it and losing it is true. And that's especially true for a lot of the hip muscles. So I guess if you can combine these sort of chair, bed, table-based hip stretches with the capsular stretches that we did in a previous video, that's a really, really, really in-depth guide to mobilizing your hips. And the important thing is that you don't, or you shouldn't necessarily wait for pain to tell you that you have a problem. If you do something as simple as a deep squat and you can't keep your feet straight, drive your knees out, keep your back in a good position without rounding, collapsing, or feet going out or heels coming up or falling backwards, that tells me that you have a restriction there. And it doesn't guarantee that you have pain or will have pain, but it guarantees that you're not functioning at full capacity. And if you're a little bit older and you're worried about falling, or you're worried about your bad back or your bad knees or some hip problems that you may have had, those positions are really, really important to master. If you've had any sort of surgery, if you've had hips replaced or knees replaced, obviously feel your way through those exercises, do them as you feel comfortable, but they should be entirely safe for anyone to do. But again, if you have any questions, please contact us. Otherwise, just work through them at your own pace. But hold me to it. If you do any of these stretches, it's important that you feel like you've made a difference straight away. If you haven't, then you haven't made a difference, you haven't made a change, and there's every chance you just wasted your time. So, but those exercises, again, don't take my word for it. If you do a squat before and after, you should feel like it's genuinely different. You shouldn't have to, no one should promise you that. You should just see it straight away. So, if you can give that a go, let us know how you go with it. And as always, like we said, if you follow along, we're hopefully having videos coming out almost daily with information that we sort of draw from the conversations and the things that we do with our patients in real time. So they're things that are valuable, but more importantly, they're things that work. So hopefully you'll see that and feel that, and hopefully it'll sort of inspire you to improving your health and physical function, because it's all very simple to do. So again, thanks for tuning in. Please leave a like below if you enjoyed the video, if you found it useful. Please share it around if you think other people might benefit from that. But until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.